When I first saw the Westland Whirlwind available at 1/100 scale, I had to get it. Because growing up, I read the Air Commander comics, and in there was this famous aircraft. Now, listen to me. This is a beautiful model. Let's begin. Now, here is the Westland Whirlwind with the famous white nose, 4mm cannon. Let us start with the fuselage. We're going to split it to doing the front fuselage, the center, and then the rear. So here we cut out the tail section, and now we're going to deal with the front. Now, here's my thing. If you get the front correct, nothing beats getting the nose perfectly rounded the way it is. And remember to always look at the plan view from drawings that you can find on the internet. This will help tremendously with what you do. Here you see I'm using the toothpick to help start the curvature of the nose point. And then I use the cake decorating tool, a ballpoint tool. Something tell me I need to do a separate tool needed for paper modeling in a video standalone only. I think I'll do that. But here you see I'm forming it and it looks good. Now after we form the nose, then we begin with the front part of the fuselage. You see I'm putting in a slight curve to the front. This will help to make the curvature look a little more realistic. Then we can put the main fuselage on. Nice. Always remember to paint the edges. It really helps with how the model look. Trust me on this. Here we slide on, looks good. So from here on out, we're going to deal now with the rear aspect of the fuselage, the tail and the fin. So here we're cutting out the rear fuselage. This will be integrated into the fin. Once we get the shape, we now cut the fin out. Now the beauty or the trick to making it look realistic as possible is that we're going to put slight curve in the trailing edge of the fin, as well as we're not going to make it flat as much as possible. We have to have the thickness just like the original model. And then we always paint the edge. I'm sorry about the slight in and out focus. I did not realize that I had it on auto, and therefore, unfortunately, it caused that. So here you see I'm putting the tail section on, and there it is. Beautiful. I love it. Let us now put on the tail wheel retract doors. Simple matter of cutting them out. You fold, just score along the line. Then you fold, glue to double it, and then we're going to put a curve in it once we cut the parts out. And then it's just simple 1-2. Then we just attach in place. Beautiful. Look at that. Now let's deal with the canopy. I love this part. A little known thing about it is that this was one of the first early fighters that adopted the tear-shaped canopy, and it followed on in later models. The all-around visibility was well worth it. Here you see I'm just applying a bit of silver paint mixed, and then I form it using my brush handle, and then we just glue the joints using paper strips on the inside. Trim what we need to trim, and use a cake decorating tool to just roll and even out the outside, and then we can attach to the fuselage. The time spent just to get the canopy, the nose of your aircraft, and the fin together really helps. The stabilizer now is a job in and of itself. It's simple, where we just cut, and just like what we did with the fin, just apply a little curve to the edges and we glue. Much as possible, we stay away from making it a flat surface. The hole that I had put in the fin earlier on is to take the toothpick where the stabilizer location is. This will help keep the shape of the stabilizer, both in terms of level and also the thickness. After straightening it out, here's a more difficult part. The small boom located at the front. And here is just basic thing of cutting it out And then we're going to take our time, use a toothpick to try form it. Ballpoint tool for where the tip is. And then we ever slowly try to just form the shape. This is going to take some practice and patience, so bear with it. Overall, eventually, I felt good about it. It's just a matter of painting it at the end of the day so that it blends with the original. The same thing to that little bit of extension at the tail. So once those are level, look pretty good, we then proceed to paint it up. Not bad. Now it's starting to look a little bit like the iconic tail of the Whirlwind. So let's go on to the wings now. To do the wing, we're going to make sure that we're doing the inboard first, then the outboard, and then the wing root fairing. So here I'm doing the inboard wing panel first. You see, after cutting, I'm just shaping the airfoil. We join the tail edge. Nice. And now we're going to do the outer wing panel. Of course, just like what we did with the fin, just like what we did with the stabilizer, on the tip, we're going to add a little curve. Then we're going to put our joiner in. And once secured, we're going to now cut and trim. Why? Because it's going to be slightly canted, ever so slightly up. Again, when building model, it's a very good thing to just refer to any tree view drawing you can find online. It really helps. Now watch this. Where the aerofoil is, I am drilling hole at the leading edge, definitely at the edge. But for the tail section, it's just slightly off the tip, and I'm using a strip of toothpick. It's much smaller. That way I can join and make sure that the wings are level. And there you go. Now about the wing root fairing, here it is. I'm showing you how I did it. First, we're going to put a strip on the wing root where the fairing is going to be. And then we're going to apply the wing root fairing very carefully so it's slightly curved up on the upside, and the underside will go straight. You see the time and effort and patience I spent. No need to rush it. Just generous amount of glue on the inside, and then you can secure it. Paint the edges of your wing. It really helps. And now, the part where I've been waiting for, the engines. The trademark of your Westland Whirlwind. This is pretty sad though that they didn't get the engine that was used on the Spitfire or the Hurricane. Instead, they were given engines that the power to weight ratio was really poor, and therefore as a result affected its performance. I wonder what it would have been like if they were fitted with the Merlin engines. What it would have been like. What difference it could have made with it. There you see I'm cutting out the nacelle, the tip, the tail end, the trailing edge of the nacelle. And then we're going to make sure secure that. It's glue up, it looks good, rest that aside. Now, again, with all things, paint the edges and add a very slight curve. This now, it will be your trademark. The slight curve you use to add with your ballpoint tool when it receives the midsection of the nacelle fairing, it looks really, really good. So if you can get into the habit of doing it, you don't necessarily need a ballpoint tool. You can even use your brush handle and just use it, practice with it on scrap paper, and you'll be amazed at the difference it will make when you build your model. But there it is for the engine. Now we're going to just apply generously glue to the wing where the engine will fit. And we just slide it into place. Once finished, we paint what we need to paint and clean up very well. The spinners for the Whirlwind were huge, beautiful though. We're going to cut the parts out, and once we do, we're going to spend serious time and effort in forming the spinner nose cone. Once we join it, we're going to use the smallest ball we can find to form that spinner properly. Here you see I'm doing the base of the spinner. We'll put a little joiner in. Then we're going to cut it, the joiner, so that way it will fold and flex to accommodate comfortably the spinner tip. And then we spend the time, all the time we need to make sure it is fine joined. And then we use a ballpoint to soften and round the spinner front. And there you have it. Now to just add a little bit more to it, we're going to put the exhaust shroud over the nacelle. So it's just scraps we cut, we add, and there it looks really nice. Love it. The landing gear now was very interesting how it was done. I decided to not use the one that was pre-printed, but the main gear built up. First, we cut out that, we take our time with our knife, and then we're using solder wire to be the structural element. This is what I learned on the channel, how to straighten it, is just use a ruler. And then we're going to slide it over the strut. There it is. This is the joint panel where I'm just doubling it, cut it out, and that will hold the strut, the main strut. Now, once we have the main strut down, we're good. We're going to then cut the retracting strut. Here you see I'm folding it, and that will glue and put aside. The wheel now was very interesting. The wheel strip, what I cut out, I'm using a ballpoint tool to try to round it. And the wheel sides, I am also rounding. That way it's to not let it look as square. That was my attempt. So you can try to let me know if it works for you. But for me, I find it did add a bit. Once we get those nice and shaped well, we then paint the wheel edges, and then it looks a little more rounded. I liked how it came out. We're going to attach a main strut now, and then we're going to put it onto the nacelle. We just punch holes where our solder wire gears will go, and then we attach the retracting strut. Lovely. Let's just clean that up a little. Nice. So now let's just add our main landing gear doors. And here it's just a matter of cutting it out, folding it, and just like what we did with the tail wheel retract doors, is the same we're doing with the main door. Just make sure you paint the edges. It always helps to do that. Put a slight curve in it and then attach. Now you can find many different ways you can approach to building your model. This was just one of the ways. Now here you see we're just going to put our tail wheel in. After cutting it out, all I did was to strip down a piece of toothpick to form a thin strip. That way I can just double it, and then I can put this into the fuselage. And there you go. Slip it in and good to go. So from here on out, all it's going to do is be a bit about odds and ends. For example, you're putting in the aerial attachment extension on the fin. Flaps that is located on the trailing edge above. These are not necessarily part of the kit. Here, we're going to now put the leading edge radiator on the inboard wing. You see I'm lightly scoring it. So after I do this, I can then fold it. And then I can slide it into position. Just making sure it have the space, and then slide it in and glue. This was one of the early innovations that the British did on the Whirlwind that was also incorporated into other aircraft of the RAF. So let's just finish up with the things that were underneath. I realized that it's a cop-out when I said the things that were underneath because I am not exactly sure what they were. So if anyone could tell me in the comments exactly what these things I'm gluing in onto the fuselage, what they were and their functions, I'd greatly appreciate it. Um, I really loved it, but I did not go into in-depth research as to what their function was. It'll be nice to know. After this, all we have to do is the bomb and the bomb rack. Now, what I did was to integrate both. I just simply built the bomb and the rack as one piece and just glued into place. The prop blades were really interesting to do. What I did was to double the cardstock. I just glued two more pieces together, paint the underside, hold it in a tweezer to paint the sides of the prop blade. Remember to leave the yellow warning tip on it and just secure the blades into position. Okay? Combination of glue and super glue. And it held. And there we have it. A beautiful Westland Whirlwind, in my opinion, at 1/100 scale. I love this model. Thank you so much for all the effort and patience and for you following. If you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. And especially, I want to shout out to all my Patreon members who make this possible. Without you, I don't know where this channel would be. You are truly co-builders and partners in making my dream come true. So until then, my friends, take care, walk good, and as always, my friends, one love.